Hi. Hi, good evening, everyone. Am I audible enough? Okay, hi. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I think we can start the session now. Okay, so first of all, thank you all for joining and welcome to a webinar on from ideas to implementation. So, create your ideal Magento development strategy. So, let me introduce myself. I am Rinal, your host for today's session. Okay, so before start the session, I will give you an overview of what we will be covering in this session. Okay. So in this webinar, we are going to learn how to develop or create a perfect Magento development strategy that suits your business unique business needs. And you can also let's discover some important tips and techniques that need to be taken care of while developing an ideal development strategy. Okay, so, if you have any queries during the session, you can just drop out the chat box. And after the session, we have allocated a Q&A session where you can just raise your hand or drop your question in the chat box. Okay. So now let's meet our speaker, Mr. Harihar Subramaniam, who is one of our true expert in the field of Magento development, and he's one of the technical lead of Codilar Technologies, and he has gained numerous recognitions from our clients for his exceptional contributions. Okay, so Hari, good evening. Hello, can you
Hello
hear
all.
me?
Hello all. Good
Yeah,
evening. Good
yeah. Welcome
afternoon.
to
Good
the
evening all.
session.
Hello all. Thank you. Welcome to the session, everyone. I'm so glad to join you on this webinar today on
Okay, okay.
another webinar from Codilar.
Yeah, I think you can take over from here now.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Renal, for the nice intro.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's get to the point. So, all I hope you're all able to hear me loud and clear. Yeah, I see a couple of confirmations already over chat. Mhm. So, our topic for today is like the ideal Magento development strategy. Say, wow, like ideal, like the Magento development strategy or any development strategy varies for every project and the requirements. But let's stick to the part which will be ideal in like most of the cases. Say we can consider development strategies, like say if we consider ourselves as a developer and to proceed with any like working on any requirements, what we first need, we need to know the best understanding of the requirements. We need to know like what are the outcome, the expectations that are set by our clients, and whether we have the right tools to get things done, and whether we have the adequate expertise to get the item sorted, right? So let's start with the right tools for the development. Say in any terms, the tools are what defines the person who, like how efficiently we can carry out our daily tasks, right? First, we'll focus on setting up an ideal work environment. What is our work environment? Our laptop, our computers. For developers, the system that we work on is our work environment, and like people around us are also there. But primarily, we interact with our systems very much, right? So, in terms of Magento development, let's focus on what are the things that we need, what are the things that are available there, which we can make use of, and all. Yeah. Okay. So this is the work environment that I'll recommend to everyone like who is starting with Magento development. If we are focusing on backend heavy task, this is the right approach to start with. Say for example, we are a Magento developer, like we are starting with backend, we are just starting with the development. In that case, say a PHP Storm, or there are two popular IDs. ID, like integrated developer environments, we can say. Our VS Code is like a lightweight IDE, whereas PHP Storm is like a very heavy IDE, but it provides a lot of functionalities. So in that terms, I'll say like PHP Storm is the go-to one for any backend heavy developer in terms of Magento. If we are going to focus on our like developments on front end and backend much, or we'll be focusing on front end heavy, I'll recommend we can go with VS Code as well. VS Code is open source, so that is like one of another advantages that we have over there. Let's stick to Magento Storm, Magento's PHP Storm here. Here, say setting up of work environment, our importing, creating a project. Maybe I can share my screen and show you how we can set up things. Mm, Allow me a minute. So I hope we are all able to see the system, right? Okay, I believe the screen share is stopped. Uh, yeah, let me reshare maybe. Hope it's visible now, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. So, say in terms of setting up a project, what we'll need the right tools. Say, PHP is the first right tool for every Magento developer that I'll recommend to have for. Here, the main important thing is of using the additional plugins that are available with PHP Storm. For every Magento developer, there are certain set of plugins which we should be using. So the plugin which we have to use and configure will be this. Okay, I see like the pop-ups are not showing up. Okay, so I believe we'll have to share this separately. I hope we can see the pop-up window now, right? So there we see a extension called Magento PHP Storm, right? So that is an extension which is recommend for um, like every Magento developer who is focusing on backend. See, this will help us on setting up, like identifying things, how the flows work, everything. So this is offered by Magento itself. Like Adobe has created this plugin or something, and then that is available for PHP Storm. There are similar plugins available for Visual Studio Code, but that will not give the extensive features that what we get from PHP Storm. That's the main reason PHP Storm is preferred for every backend developers. Let's focus on how to configure this maybe. Yeah. a bit of a hassle here. Hmm. So what we see here is the PHP Storm's settings window. Okay, so here we'll able to see where to like specify the settings that we have installed for. We have installed a extension, right? So to enable that extension, we have to use go into the settings and enable the Magento integrations. Provide the path where we have installed our Magento dockroot application. So it automatically recognizes the version that what we are using, and just yeah, that's it. We are good to go. We'll have to do reindex, of course. So once reindexing is done, like once this is not Magento's reindex, say this is the IDE's indexing. Once that is done, we are good to go. Yeah, let me show. So this is not the only case what we have to configure for. Apart from this, we have other quality tools like PHP code sniffer, PHP mess detector, Xdebug, other tools. Say these were actually covered by Sandesh in our previous webinars. I hope you guys are like familiar with these items, but just to make sure we can cover a glimpse of it now. Okay, I see that the section is not updated. Maybe let me share again. So yeah, here we see our code sniffer settings where we have this will be a quality tools under we can search for the code sniffer or we can directly go into the settings of our PHP Storm. We can find it under PHP quality tools where we have a lot of different tools available which are offered by the IDE itself. So here we are planning to configure code sniffer, mesh detector, and all that stuff now. Say we'll need to specify the code sniffer, the path where it is installed over here. It will be typically under our dockroots vendor. The same goes with um, mesh detector as well. So once those are set, we are pretty much set for our developers starting with our development. Okay. Yeah. So further, let's see how this shows up on our IDE. So let's say we want to find a specific class. Let's take some core classes. Okay. So what we see here is like, okay, that has complete its indexing. It's, so this is the only reason that we can rely upon PHP Storm for like the power where we can check all the other available plugins available observers, everything we can check from our page system ID itself. Oh, nice. We are running into some errors. So there we go. Here, these icons that we see over this save methodology, like these are the this is an interface, and it shows all the methods implemented from this. We can find all our API endpoints which are corresponding to this save function. Say it will directly redirect to our web API XML, where we can see, okay, this is where I have an API endpoint written for this. From this method we can directly do control click to get into the function. We can see where are the areas this method is implemented, overridden, everything will be available. Say when there is a observer or a plugin available, we can find those details also from this pop-ups as well. So this is one of a very useful thing which we can see. So this is the most painful point of every developer when we are finding, okay, what are the implementations, whether my current method is having a plugin or not. We have to search for any date XMLs. We have to find on other observer events and all. So when we have this right available, it is like easier for us to finish through the tasks, right? Yeah. Okay, hope this is fine. Then we have this we have like gone so far with setting up a PHP storm, setting up our project directories, like configuring the ID with our Magento PHP storm plugins, like setting up the quality tools, everything. One more thing which we can specify here is when we check, we have a lot of directories available in our module, right? So that is something called setting a directory as excluded, right? If we, I don't know whether we can see the pop-up here. Mm, when we right click on this, what we can see, okay, hope we can see this change of colors on this, right? This is marked as red. These are all the files under app are marked as blue. So that those have some meanings. It means whenever we are excluding a specific set of files from like not as a project's directory, it will be considered red. So these files will not be considered for indexing, which will save a lot of memory in local, so that our system will be running smooth. That's one thing. This is important while setting up the ID itself. Say we can consider every code inside our app and design app code, app design as our project root, where we can mark these as our source code. We don't have to check the data like code available under dev, that we can mark as like excluded, so these will not be indexed much. We'll need the files under generated, which are generated by the di compile command, or whenever in terms of developer mode, whenever we are hitting a record, it will be generated. Then vendor, the most important file, this will be our sources root as well. If we don't specify whether a file is a source root or excluded, a test file, page we some consider every files as a regular source code under our current project root and indexes all these files. Okay. Then I think we can jump on to the next item. Yeah. So I hope here we are good so far. Then further, uh, proceeding with development strategies. That's the important topic of our webinar today, right? Say development strategies, we can we can consider development strategies in like two branches, where the strategies that we follow, that we have to follow while we are developing a new feature, and the strategies we follow to debug an existing issue. There is an existing feature, and the feature is not working as per the expectation, and we have to debug, identify, and resolve that. So those are two different areas, and different strategies will have to be followed for those items. Let's go through things one by one, and let's take an example for this as well. Cool. Say, whenever we are going to develop a new functionality, the first thing, like as a developer, as a budding developer, what we do in general is like, okay, I have got the requirements, I have a list of sheet, I'll start coding for this. So that's the number one thing which we should not do. First, we have to spend time on planning the task. We have to say, let's take a classic example and go through the items. We are working on a integration, say with a shipping partner. So like whenever our website is receiving a new order, we have to send the order data to the shipping partner so that the shipping partner can collect the items from the warehouse and drop it to the customer who have placed order for it. For that, from Magento's point of view, what are the items we'll need to do? Just we'll consider this as an example. Say whenever an order is successfully placed, like say the payment is received, we'll have to send the order details to an external team, right? So this will be a primary requirement. Like this is the integration we are going to work on. Let's consider that. Then what are the parts available on this? Say number one, we'll have to plan on the item. Say we can directly start working on like a code where we say like, okay, we'll have some after events or after observers. After this order is successfully placed, we fetch the current orders data and like prepare a payload, send to the API wherever the third party integration provider has given that. That is one approach. Say, but while starting on it, what are the best approaches? Always I'll recommend go like consider minimum two approach for a feature. Go for at least plan for come up with an approach and try to make a better approach than the previous one, right? That is like important. In terms of developing, we might have some views and different people have a lot of other views. It will always good when we discuss our requirements with a large people, a senior, we can discuss with our peers and get a view whether are we going with the right approach or not. We can always like confirm the approach that we have prepared and proceed further. That will save a lot of time while debugging, while fixing issues in later on. So that is one thing which I'll recommend. Number one, don't write code immediately, understand the requirements, and then we'll have to come up with two new approaches. Say, let's say in this classic case, an order is placed. Let's come up with the first approach. Okay, I'm a website. I'm running a website. We have received an order for from a customer today, and what we're planning to do as a developer. Okay, on we have this observer called sales order place after an event. We can just add a observer to that where we get all the info regarding order, payments regarding order, everything. And then we from that observer we'll prepare the payload. Okay, what are the details the shipping party need? In most cases the shipping party will need the order ID, the SKUs, the price of the product if required or not, the shipping address, the billing address, the contact mobile numbers, those details, right? Say we'll have to prepare a payload for these items and call the integration API. Like there will be a third party API provided, or we'll have to make these available on our Magento's API and get the third party read the data. That is also one. Then what are the drawbacks on our first approach? While proceeding in the second approach, we have to consider, okay, what are the drawbacks we might have if we go with approach A? There will come up, we will then get a new approach B. Say we are running with a very small website. This approach will not cause a bigger issue, but we are running a sale. We are facing a huge incoming traffic, and while we are doing this on the same place order call, the Magento will do something like preparing the payload and call a third party API integration, right? So this will not be a ideal approach in a lot of areas, which will cost more time. Say what happens if the third party API is not available when we are calling? If we are getting a response very it's delayed response, then the customer will also be waiting on the front end who should see an order success page instantly. So there we are planning to go with a different approach where we'll send those data to the third party on a asynchronous way, right? So what is asynchronous? Asynchronous is something like will not disturb the flow of the current request, and the another request which we are another action which we are supposed to do, a sub action inside the main flow, will be like passed into a queue. It can be a RabbitMQ message queue based queue, or we can follow classic Magento's database queue as well. Magento also provides RabbitMQ, right? So we can make use of it. This subaction is pushed into a queue, and that queue waits. The end customer will receive the order success page, and the customer will be clear like, okay, yeah, the order is placed, and the customer will get a product as soon as the data is passed to the shipper. Then what happens to this message that we pushed into our queue? We'll write another consumer. A queue consumer will read the data. Say, let's not talk about like queues consumers. Let's make it simple. As of now, we'll have a entry on our database where whether to ensure whether the data is already pushed to the third party or not. Based on this, we'll have a cron. The cron will process the data, will get the data in like batches, and then the cron will process the data and pass the data to the third party. So what is the advantage of using a async way and like synchronous way is like the average response time for the customers will be very less, and these calls it's not mandatory for us to pass the like call the third party integration on the same call, but it depends on the requirements. For this example, asynchronous is preferable. So like this, we have to analyze every requirement, and based on the requirement we'll have to come up with approaches. And once the approach is finalized, say let's assume for this requirement we are finalizing the approach B, we are going with async. So here what we have to do, we have to split the task into multiple subtasks and then achieve one subtask at a time. That's what is going to give us like a proper indication of whether we are going the right path, whether we are achieving whether we are going to complete this within the planned time or not. So these are the items which you have to follow. And then a most common mistake which I did when I was starting development, which I see a lot of people do, is like we'll write code to ensure that it is written in an optimal way. It's running. The code should work in like a very best way. It should be written in a very best way possible. Let's not do that mistake. Let's come up with a solution which works first. Then let's declutter that, let's refactor the code, and then let's make it optimized. So always focus on getting the working solution first, and then working on updating the solution later on and optimizing it further, like that is one thing. And optimizing like getting a working solution first and then optimizing the solution doesn't mean like we'll have to change the entire approach. Say we'll have to discuss and stick to a specific approach, and further finalizing the approach we have to proceed this way. This is like a best strategy that we can follow on developing a new feature. This strategy will not be applicable in case of a debugging functionality, right? So when we are doing debugging, we cannot say like this strategy will work. Where in case of debugging, what will happen? We'll not have a clear cut what understanding of what are the specific paths we have to follow, what code I have to write. We'll not know, okay, how much time it will take for us to resolve it. Those are like those will come when we uh, understand the issue and identify the root cause. So on debugging, understanding the root cause, replicating the issue will be the primary goal for us to achieve first. Say say in terms of debugging, let's talk about the um, issue. Let's take a classic example. Say we have just made a uh, application, a feature which passes data from Magento to a third party, passes the order data, right? So we find that On some day, we have a huge backlog and the third party system did not receive orders from Magento at all. So this is a bug in our system. We have executed that and we have seen like this is working. But let's now we have to debug the issue, which was already there on production working, and then we have to identify why this issue has happened and we have to find a solution for it. Right? Say, let's what is the first on understanding approaching a bug, we have to understand, okay, what is expected out of the solution that we are going to give. I am given with a bug, I have found a bug in my website, what is the expected behavior, what is the acceptance criteria of this. That's the number one. And then for most of the issue, the next step is to replicate it. We'll have to identify and replicate the issue on local, and then we have to proceed with resolving that. Say in most of the front end related development, what we'll see is like some code will be working on a different browser but it will not work on a different browser, like say works on Chrome but not works on Safari, right? So those cases, each browser will have its own limitation. So such kind issues we'll have to try replicating in our local, and then we'll be able to identify the root cause soon. So for this example, let's say our issue is like we have like 100 orders placed today and these 100 orders are not pushed to the third party system. That's the issue we are facing now. Then what is the first step to debug? The first step to debug is to look for the logs. In Magento, whenever there is an exception happens, we'll have clear cut logs for everything. For I won't say everything, it will be there for like 99% of all the issues we can find is on logs. We can find a meaningful message on the logs. Then we'll have to start our backtrace from it. We'll have to check if there is a stack trace available, which method is calling an issue, which file is calling an issue, who is calling an issue, is this coming from a front end, is this coming from an API. So these are the areas which have to check while we are doing a debugging against an issue. For this here on our approach B for our task, we have proceeded with the cron. So let's assume this 100 records are not passed with third party. Say there might be some errors on our cron logs, right? There might be some errors on our cron log files. There might be some errors on our exception logs, system.log files we can find. While doing it, we came to know like, okay, that we have added adequate logs so that we can see which file was processed last and what is the error message, which content throw the exception, something like that. We'll get to know. From that, we'll need to replicate the issue on local. Then say let's try to simulate the same scenario on our developer environment. We have a local setup available. We have a local we have just set up our IDE. We have the code base available, which was written as well. Then we just have to set the data and run our code against the test load, against the test data, like or the data what we had issue, and then see what is the behavior of the code. So how to see the behavior of code? There are multiple ways. There are different approaches. The classic way is to add a log inside code on every exception, on every like 10 lines, every 100 lines inside the method, and see whether the code is reaching, whether PHP is the code execution is reaching till that line. That is one of a way, but we'll say like that is not the best way available. That is not the good way. This is where Xdebug comes into play. Xdebug is a tool which is used to stop PHP execution or add a breakpoint. I'm sure like most of us would have heard about Xdebug, but I'm not sure how many of us are using Xdebug in general. Yeah. So while using Xdebug, we can see we can add a breakpoint to a specific line, and while executing it, PHP, our debugger will clearly show, okay, this is the point where we see where it is coming, it is reaching or not, what are the data coming against a specific point of code, everything we can see on it. Then we'll get to know, okay, we'll have more clarity on, okay, this is the reason we have this issue. And so based on this, we can say we can come up with a solution. Say in our case, we are pushing like 100 orders, 1000 orders completely in a batch. That might be a high chance of memory going out. So these kinds of issues will not be available on will not be reproducible on local, because on a local developers environment, what we see is like we'll not have the real data, real like orders, the real customer load, everything, and we are just trying to simulate the same behavior. It might still go through. Say if there is a issue due to the memory, what can we do? We need to check on the PHP logs. We have to check on the web server logs. In most of the cases, we are using Nginx as our web server. If we don't find any exception messages or logs in Magento's logs, those are the next area to check. And then while doing all these, there is an important factor which we have to think of while doing debugging. Say we are given with an issue, we have started debugging on it. We have been trying on this item for like last 1 hour, last 2 hours, to trying to reproduce the issue. Okay, I know the expected behavior, we have I got the understanding, but I'm trying to reproduce the issue, but it is not happening. How long can we go for that? There should be a specific time limit against every task, right? In terms of development approach, we can say we are splitting our items into minimal subtasks, and we are judging whether we have reached the target, whether we have completed the subtask in our allocated time or not. In the same way here, we'll have to say arbitrarily, if we are stuck on the same area, same without any progress for like more than 2 hours, I'll say we'll have to change our approach. That is the benchmark. The benchmark 2 hours, 1 hour will vary for everyone. We can it varies for projects, varies per person. But what I'll say, if you are stuck on a task for more than 2 hours, don't stick on to it. There is something wrong on what we are doing, what approach we have taken on, and we have to change the approach. If there is a progress made, okay, we are making a progress. I know like this file is throwing an error. I have identified the root cause of the bug, then it is fine. Okay, spending 2 hours on item, okay, we have made some progress, then we'll move on to the next item. We'll move on. But if that is not happening, if we are stuck on a part, let's not proceed further. Say it can be the next further actions should be like to change our approach, reach out to someone, reach out to our peers, reach out to our seniors, reach out on online forums. If this is an existing bug, if there is an existing solution available or not, we can do search like that, and then we'll get a different approach that is there. Say if we are not able to reproduce the issue on local at all, what can we do? So that is again also depends on the environment. What we do, say we'll need to check whether we have the same set of like system available on the production environment where we face the issue, and our local environment where we don't face the issue. Say for example, our production server might be using a MySQL version, MySQL say 8, and we are using a MariaDB on local. It's not much of a difference, but it's worth noting as a difference, right? So how MySQL works and MariaDB works are like different in terms of the version that we are using. So these items we can try to have the same set, have the same system setup available on local and on our production servers, so that it will be easy for us to debug further. Even still, if we are not getting the same issue, then we can do something like we can add some logs. But if we have Xdebugger setup on other servers, other systems, it will be good to go. But if we don't have, when we don't have more options, loggers are the option to go, right? So we can add logs, we can add some patches and check the behavior of the bugs. And then another debugging tools that comes into play is like we can see, uh, I hope we'll be familiar with a tool called a Neuralink. Neuralink can be used to identify the load, how much time execution takes, whatever is running for so much of time, these details. So we can use tools like that to proceed further with our debugging, right? Once that is done, say we have identified our issue on a local. Let's assume, as we said in our example, in the feature that we have developed, 1,000 orders were not pushed to the server. There is a high chance our PHP memory is not sufficient, or it is not set up on the required level, which can handle the load of all the data that we are planning to process. It's always recommended to process data in batches. So these are something which we can do while doing implementation, while doing a feature development itself. So then once we have identified the issue, once we have identified a solution for it, then we have to follow the same strategy what we have used for development. We can like split the solution, the approach what we have identified, into smaller subtasks, and then define a specific timeline for it. Then we stick to it. If we are finding like, okay, I have splitted my task into like three parts, A, B, and C, let's say, and I have achieved the target A in like the specified time, and I'm taking like so much of time on the subtask B, then it is okay to reach out to people. The common mistake what I see or what I have did while starting development was like, we'll not reach out for help much. That is something which we cannot that is something that is not sustainable, I would say. If we have to grow, we have to grow as a team, right? We can reach out and we can identify support, we can check if there is a similar cases, and then we can arrive on a solution for it. Then after all these are done, we'll have to focus on testing on a local. We'll have to check why this case has not why we did not identify this case on our local when we have developed it, but this is happening on our other servers, right? So these things where we might miss out on doing unit testing on local. It is good to add a PHP unit test case while doing project while doing the development itself of again any feature. But PHP unit, if we are consuming like more than 10% time allocated for the entire task, I would say let's not go for it. We'll have some, that threshold 10% will vary for the team and projects, as we said earlier. So that's it. We'll have to focus on testing more, on debugging further and all. Yeah. Mm, cool. I think maybe we can go for any questions. If there is any questions, we can go for it.
Okay, thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
Okay, I hope you have all found this webinar very helpful. Okay, so I will share a feedback form. Wait.
Okay, we have a question. We have a question from
Okay.
Danish. So how are we going to resolve the issue which we are not able to replicate? For example, even your consumer is complaining, the payment is not working, but when you try, you are able to reproduce the issue. You're not able to reproduce the issue. Say, that's what. Not all issues will be reproducible, as I said. In these, this is what we have said. When we don't, we're not able to replicate an issue. The best way to go is to use a logger. We can add logs, we can add a patch, and we can deploy on our system and try to replicate the issue. Then we'll get more info. When we are not able to identify, like, why are we going for a log? We have to find information about why the issue is happening, right? Say, in our local environment or staging environments, if the payment is going through, it doesn't mean like it should always go through the on the production server, right? It can be like we are passing some data, certain data on production on a different format, whereas the data, like the end party who is actually receiving the data is processing it different. I'll recommend for these cases we can go to we can add a log on the respective areas, the payment controllers, or if we are using the payment APIs, we can add a log and see what is the data that we are passing and try to pass the same data from a local environment. We'll be able to replicate further.
Yeah.
Hi, Bhaktahari. So we have another question. Do we have any plugin to check the performance of code? How much it was taking in PHP Storm? Say, to check performance on local, there is something called profilers. We can use profilers. We can use Magento provides a default profiler, and Xdebug also has a profiler built into it. I hope we have seen to search performance and to work on performance optimizations. We'll need to know which piece of code is actually consuming more time, right? So for that, we need to understand, we need some kind of tools to understand and check and tell us, okay, we have a method A in your class, and that method is taking like 25% of your time. Other methods, other cases are taking like less than 2%, less than 3%. We have something called profiler on XDebug. When we set up on that, we can see um, it will give us exactly the same way how we see on Neuralink. Neuralink is something that can be used on staging or production environments. And for local, I'll say you go with XDebug profiler mode. PHP Storm has a built-in tool which we can use to parse the profiler's output and see the stack traces with the execution time and all. So hope that answers
Okay.
that. And we have another question: how much you can
Yeah.
rely on message queue? Which is better, cron or message queue? Sometimes messenger queue is broken, you had to restart it, so in that case we had to keep checking it. Say in cron also, in cron message queue also, both areas we face this issue. Say what will happen if cron is also running into an error and the message queue is also running into error. Say in case of cron, we'll have some flags and we'll have max number of retries, something like that, right? For a max number of say we are not going with a message queue, we are going with a traditional crons database queue way. What will happen if, even if the data that is added on the queue itself is wrong, that will obviously fail, right? We can have some maximum retry limits. That is the typical approach. We'll have some maximum retrays, like how many times we have retried the same queue again and again inside the database, and if it's more than that, we'll have to periodically analyze how many has gone into errors, and then based on it we'll have to rectify either the data or the approach. The same goes for message queue as well. There is something called dead letter queue. Whenever your data is whenever your queue is failed, you can set up it such that it can push the data into dead letter queue. If we have some data, if we have some entries available in our dead letter queue, we have to check and analyze why this has happened, and we have to, based on the data that is added into dead letter queue, we can proceed further on it.
Okay. Yeah, Dharmesh raised his hand. Yeah, okay. Dharmesh, I have made you audible. Okay.
I think Ramesh, you can join and you can speak.
Yeah. Hello. Hi,
Am I
Dharmesh.
audible? Am I audible now?
Yeah,
Hi
yeah.
Dharmesh, yeah.
Okay. Hi, Hari.
Hi,
Hello. Thank you for this presentation. It is really helpful.
thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
yeah, I think I would like to discuss on the questions, and Hari already answered most of the questions. That
Yes.
one of the query was regarding the cron job versus messenger queue,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because obviously cron job is not real time, but messenger queue is real time. You can get the real time updates using the messenger queue
Yeah,
in
it
case
depends.
of requirement.
Even, yeah, even on inside in terms of Magento is actually using a cron to run the message queues. Actually, there is a cron
Yeah,
which,
yeah, you can
yeah,
set up over there.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. And yeah, regarding very first question I had regarding the payment,
Mm-hmm.
what will you do in case you are not able to, I mean, get anything inside the log
Say
as
if,
well?
say, yeah, as I said,
Because what
if
happens
we are
is
not,
most of the times the end customer, the who is placing the order is facing the issue, but even on a production you are not facing such similar issues.
say it depends on the
So,
card the
do you
customers use.
recommend any third party tool that can keep observation of what customer is doing? I mean, something like a Microsoft Clarity is there, but it is
Yeah,
also
so
giving the
we have certain tools which we can add our website to track the customer activity, right? It
yeah.
will we have some hardware plugins, I believe. So those plugins which we can add, it runs on the front end. It will capture the entire customer's journey, and from there we can identify, okay, what is the areas customer, which buttons the customers are clicking, how the customer comes from cart page to checkout page. Is it like the customer does not come to the cart page at all, the customer directly goes to checkout page via URL? Those data, those we can get from that, but that is like a very rare case that will happen. In most cases like this, where we cannot reproduce an issue on our local or staging environments, it is better to add a log and add a log into the code, and add a track trace on the code where the issue happens from. Say we'll see some exception logs, right, against the payments. On the payment journey we can add some logs and check what are the stack traces available, what is the data, what is the exact exception object available, From that we'll get to know. Or else we'll have to check whether the payment has not flown from Magento to the payment provider itself, or if it's gone to the payment provider and there is an exception after receiving the response from payment provider. That is also a case, right? So based on these items, we'll have to debug further.
Yeah, thank you. It will be helpful.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dharmesh.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, Jaydeep has come question. Do you suggest Docker for local setup?
Of course, yeah. They suggest Docker for local setup. Uh, Docker is like helpful when you are working on like multiple projects. It's like a personal preference. But what I'll say, when you're going to work on multiple projects which are using like a different PHP versions, which are using like different database versions. Say a project A will be on PHP 8.1, whereas the project B will be on PHP 7.4, using Magento 2, Magento open source, Magento enterprise. Uh, like so, we are working on both backend and front end systems. In these cases, Docker will be helpful. If we are going to only work on a single project, say it depends on the like how the project is set up, we can proceed with that.
Okay, yeah, Dharmesh is asking which is one better, Docker or Warden?
Well, Warden, I haven't tried Warden at all. I've heard about Warden, but didn't get to use on it. Maybe I'll check and then I can say. I cannot comment on this as of now.
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, does anyone have any queries? Any other? Mm,
So how can you identify how many changes available in Magento core code? I mean, okay, say it is not straightforward always. To check on this, there is this. You have this tool called Upgrade Compatibility Tool, where Magento provides Magento's tool. There is a tool called Upgrade Compatibility Tool. We can download it. It is generally created to check whether what are the areas we have to modify when we are upgrading from one Magento version to another. But here you can use the tool to check. It will give us a detailed report on like which lines have issues with the version, which target version which we are upgrading to, something like that. You can use the tool and it will give you a HTML report, JSON report, everything on these lines are like change. These lines have needs change from this version to that and all. Or else um, um, another way is like have a clean install. You can use certain Linux commands like recursive diff against two folders, and it will generate a report. That will be also easy for us.
okay,
Yeah.
so so okay. So I think your time is up. So I think we can wind up now. Yeah, I think you were able to submit the feedback form. Okay, so thank you all for joining, and I hope it was a great session. Okay, so we will be sharing the recorded video soon. Okay, so thank you, Harry.
Thank
Okay,
you all.
thank you all. Thank you once again. Bye.